For joining us, everyone. As a reminder, we are recording this meeting and we will post that meeting video and materials to our project website. This is our January 11th, 2024 filtration neighbor information meeting. My name is Benita Oswald and I coordinate the communications for the Bull Run Filtration Project. And on our agenda tonight, we have project updates from Project Deputy Program Manager Michelle Cheek. She'll then turn it over to Ben Nordland, who's our Pipeline Construction Manager, and he's going to talk about the phases of construction. And as part of that first phase, we're going to be doing some road improvements. He's also going to talk about that as well. We did have Thomas Gilman, he's our facility construction manager, but he was not able to make it tonight. He's not feeling very well. But then after that, we'll have some time for questions and comments, and then we'll talk a little bit about future meetings. So I will turn it over to Michelle.
Excellent. Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us tonight. I hope everyone is staying warm and prepping for the big snow event that we're going to supposedly be getting tomorrow and Saturday. And in case we have any new folks attending, I'll start with a brief overview of the project and then provide some brief updates before handing it over to Ben to talk in more detail about some upcoming construction activities. So this slide is an overview of the facility site looking southwest from the main entrance off Carpenter Lane. So as you come into the facility there through what looks like a roundabout, the first structures there you'll see on the right-hand side is our administration building. And then to the left of that is our maintenance facility. And then behind the maintenance facility is our solids handling facility. So that's part of the treatment process itself. And then to the right of that is our chemical building that houses all of the treatment chemicals that will be used for the treatment process. And then to the right of that is kind of the heart of the facility that is our flocculation and sedimentation basins. That's where our raw water will come in and big particles will fall out of the water before the water then goes on to our filters. And from there, the filter water goes into an underground clear well, which is kind of the big green, what looks like a giant double tennis court right there that Aubrey is showing. So anyways, next slide. So the primary access to the filtration facility site will be east off Cottrell Road onto Carpenter Lane, entering the site from the north. So construction traffic will also use Carpenter Lane to access the site. And one of our first construction activities will be improvements to Carpenter Lane. We'll be widening and paving the road to allow safe access to the site during and after construction. There will also be an emergency access to Bluff Road in Clackamas County to the south. And that's the red line there going south to Bluff Road. And then next slide. So in addition to the facility itself, we will be constructing new water pipelines to convey water to and from our existing pipelines and the facility. And we'll also have a local distribution main to provide filtered water to existing customers in the area. And so this slide shows the route of the new pipelines and also that local distribution main. Multiple types of construction will be occurring near or at the facility site, starting with the Carpenter Lane improvements that I mentioned earlier. And then the pipeline construction will be occurring in segments along the pipeline routes themselves. And Ben will share more about the initial activities you might see for the facility and pipeline construction. Next slide. Since we met in October, we've obtained our land use permitting approvals from Multnomah County and Clackamas County. We're working to obtain other permits required for the project, such as building permits and erosion and sediment control permits. We're continuing to work with both filtration and pipelines contractors to further develop their construction schedules and work sequencing. As I mentioned earlier, one of our first construction activities will be improvements to Carpenter Lane. We're preparing for the start of that work and other offsite roadway improvements for the project. And Ben will again share more information about early activities for that work. And finally, we're committed to sharing information throughout construction, and we'll continue ongoing communication and outreach to keep facility site neighbors and local businesses informed about upcoming activities. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ben unless there's any questions.
Cool, thanks, Michelle. Can we get that next slide, please? So the beginning phases of construction, right now for the pipelines, you as neighbors, you probably won't see too much activity specific to the pipelines project, but the filtration project in general, you will start to see some work happening out there. But specific to the pipeline construction, some of the things we're starting on now, we're going to be working with the utilities out there, such as PGE and Ziply and various other agencies to identify where their existing facilities are, to just confirm that there are no conflicts with our proposed pipelines route. We'll also be completing some improvements that are described in the land use permit conditions of approval. One we're dubbing called the Fix It First roadway improvements. Sorry, can you go back to that, Aubrey? Sorry.
Yes, sorry
those
about
first. No worries. The Fix It First is if everyone, I'm sure everyone here has the land use conditions of approval. Within them, we agreed to kind of start work on some of these roadways that are not up to standards to be able to handle some construction traffic, as well as just trying to improve the roadways before we get out there and do our work. And the other first set of improvements is the Carpenter Lane roadway improvements. That's probably the most visible thing the neighborhood will see as we begin our construction. Some of the other activities for the pipelines construction is we'll be out there surveying limits of the project, delineating where certain easements are, where the right of way is. During construction, we really like to stress that the contractors should stay within the limits that we've agreed upon. So survey really helps with that. You may see some clearing and grubbing, some tree cutting, some tree trimming, removal of shrubs and stuff like that that may be impacted by the work as we progress, as well as working with the varying agencies that we have to get permits for before we're allowed to do construction. Next slide, please. So we tried to distill all of the phases of the work. This is a very complex project, so it was really hard to distill it down to 4 items. But in the first stage for pipeline construction, you probably won't see anyone out in the field doing any major construction. So you won't really see backhoes, you won't really see the work that you see up in the picture in the upper right, probably for a few months, if not maybe sometime when the weather starts to change. But some of our preliminary work will be to securing materials that have long lead times. Pipe that's that big takes a long time to get ready to bring it out to the site. Again, we'll be verifying underground utilities within the project limits, coordinating with the permitting staff, and the contractors will be out there just to verify things. So that way, when they're actually out there impacting the community, we can be as most efficient as possible with our construction work. And as you see, I kind of distilled what the future phases we'll see. Once we kind of get past this preliminary work, you'll see us out there mobilizing and doing site preparation. Then we'll get into the actual construction of the pipelines, and finally site restoration and final cleanup. As we progress through the construction, we'll have a little more information about those future phases. Next slide, please. And some of the most visual stuff that the community will see will be our traffic control. We understand these roads need to be used for traffic, for the neighborhood, to get kids to school, to get people to work, to do the various chores, also to minimize our impact with the farm community that's out there. I know we've worked really hard with them to try to find conditions that could really ensure that we really minimize the impact on their operations. They're a very big part of the community that we live in. So some of the items that we worry about for traffic safety are, making sure that people have signs and flagging if signs aren't adequate. We'll maintain pedestrian access so that way people can still get around. We'll always have open lines of communication. So if something looks off, we encourage people to come and talk to us so we can make these construction activities least impactful as possible. Thanks. And that was going to be the end of the pipeline stuff. Unfortunately, we're not really doing too much activities. And I was going to segue to stuff that's a little more specific to the facility. And so the next slide, I'll try to do my best and cover for my counterpart. So next slide, please, Aubrey. And some of the most impactful stuff you'll see is the work that's starting on Carpenter Lane. One of the conditions that the county said is that if you're going to be having construction equipment, as well as future use of the facility, that the Carpenter Lane needed to be improved so that way the roadway can last its design life. So we'll be widening the roadway surface to 24 feet. It will maintain the same alignment. The county will help us to make sure that it is up to the survey standards that they've dictated to us. We'll at the end, it'll be a new asphalt surface. We'll also be having some gravel shoulders as well as some stormwater improvements to help the drainage in this area. Next slide, please. Here's an overview map of the impacted area where this Carpenter Lane improvements will occur. It'll come down in the upper left-hand corner. It'll come down from Dodge Park. It'll make its way south onto Cottrell and go east onto Carpenter Lane. This is probably the most traveled route for most of our construction activities. So we're trying to remove all that stuff. Yeah. Next slide, please. And the sequence of the roadway. So right now we're doing outreach to the property owners, weather pending. We'll be out there surveying the right-of-way limits, any easements that we have, so we can just let people know where the project's going to happen. There'll be removal of trees and vegetation that's conflicting with what's in the roadway, and coordinating with utilities as well as all the services that everyone uses out there, including their mail service, their garbage service, and various other utilities and services out there. And then after everything's kind of coordinated, then we'll just begin the construction. And when we're done, it'll look like a brand new roadway, and everyone's driveways will be restored so they can get to and fro without any impacts. And I believe that's my last slide. Does anyone have any questions about what they might be seeing in the next few months? Cool. Thanks, everyone.
I am talking on mute, but I'm gonna just put it out there that we are taking questions. So if you have questions about anything that either Michelle or Ben have talked about, or something else, please feel free to raise your hand. You can raise your actual hand, your virtual hand. You can type in the chat. You can just come off mute. My eye out here. William, I see you lighting up there. Do you have a question?
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I just have a general question of the layout between the 90-degree angle of the two roads.
You,
I'm just
uh,
wondering whether or not there would be a radius or something like that with the improvement and upgrades of the roads. It appeared on the diagram that they would be at essentially right on Control Road and Carpenter Lane, southeast Carpenter Lane. They showed that they would be sharp angles. I was thinking there should be a radius or something like that that would develop those locations, especially during the construction period when you're probably going to have a lot of significant equipment going in and out of the project. I'm just curious about that, if that's going to be addressed or if that's just a short-term item.
yeah, that's a good question. Ben, you want to take that?
Sure. Yeah, so this map right here is that orange that you see is actually just delineating the project limits. It's really more of an engineering survey map to just kind of really check the legal boxes. But you're absolutely correct. When we go around those corners, it is not going to be a right angle. The roadway kind of, if you're looking at these two orange marks, the roadway is probably half width of that. So this is, again, this is really just kind of showing your property angles, which is almost always right angles. But the roadway plans will have a radius going around there.
Okay.
And we're actually meeting the county standards. So if you did kind of want to look a little more into that, Multnomah County has a website that really explains kind of what their standards are. It's not the best, most enjoyable thing to read, but it really does get into the weeds about how you design roadways so people have site clearances, minimize impacts to or potential accidents. So hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Yes, for the most part. And do you know what the width of the right of ways across there are? You're gonna have, like you said, a nominal 24-foot lanes on 24-foot roadway, which would like about 100-foot right of way for the.
Yeah. So again, I'm
just
not
curious.
as focused on this project, but
Yeah.
from what I recall, I believe Carpenter Lane and Cottrell or something like a 60-foot width right of way, and way is essentially property line to property line.
Okay.
And Dodge Park, I know because the pipelines really go up Dodge Park. Dodge Park is 100 feet wide from property line to property line,
Okay.
which is what we call the right of way.
Right. Now, on the alignment of the new pipes that are going to go in and out, are they going to be under the roadways or are they going to be off in the shoulders? Or do you know that? Has that been determined yet?
So they're really big pipes.
Right.
There's a lot of people that are water. So it's a little bit of a mixed one. They won't be in the center of the roadway. Mainly because if we ever have to repair stuff, we don't want to have to shut down the complete roadway just to make a small repair. There's also a lot of times there's other utilities that want to put space in roadways, so we try to be efficient with where these are, so future potential work could happen. So I don't mean to punt that, but it's a little, it varies and it kind of depends on where there's space and where we can put it.
Okay.
But then they
Yeah,
will
but
all be underground, is that?
Oh,
right?
they will
just
all
none
be,
that can be above ground.
yes. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Got the chat you can use. Looking for hands, virtual hands. You can come off of your mute, turn on your video. Scanning through the list to see if there's anybody doing that. Feel like I need some waiting music, like Jeopardy or something.
I'd sing for you, Benita, but you don't want to hear that.
One day.
Almost-
Right. There's no other questions. Again, we do post these videos and slideshow minutes to our website. So you can, if you think of something later, feel free to reach out. But I guess that brings us to the end of this meeting. And I want to encourage you to sign up for our e-news. Even if you're already signed up, please go back and check that. Your preferences again, because we are making some changes to our e-news server and we'll be offering text alerts through that service as well. So if you would like text alerts, please use that to sign up for that. And there's a web address down there where you can, that also will take you to updating your preferences if you like, or any emails that you get from us. There's a little box at the bottom that allows you to update your preferences. Also, we have down below the email address that you can send to, or the new hotline. The number that's on there is a construction hotline. And as we get into construction, there'll be messages on what the traffic impacts are in the area. And there's also the opportunity for you to leave a message if you'd like. And that's actually one of the best ways to get in touch with someone, because I will likely be the person responding to these messages, but sometimes I like to take vacations and I like to take time off too. So someone's always monitoring that line, and you might get a quicker response by calling that number versus my number, but always happy to respond to you when I am able to. If you do send me an email or call my work phone number. Next slide there. Oh, did I hear someone?
Can you hear us?
Oh, yes, Thomas.
Oh, you can? Okay.
Yes, I can hear you now.
So I was looking at the roads. You had the one coming in on Carpenter Lane.
Yeah. Okay, let's
So is
back
there-
up a little bit, Aubrey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
this
is there another one coming down onto Bluff Road?
there actually, oh, we go, yeah, there you go. So
Pardon?
there is one more road that's coming down Bluff Road. That's going to be developed a little bit later, but that's not going to be a road that we use for construction. That's going to be a road that we will use as an emergency access to the filtration facility once it's in
Okay.
operation.
Okay.
But will there be one for Bluff Road, into Bluff Road eventually?
Yes, eventually. Yeah. So that will just be an emergency access. So
Okay.
Okay.
it's the red line that's on this map.
Yeah. And that's right coming down beside the school up there.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions while we're on that slide, or in general? Oh, okay. Don't see any more. I see Dean and Pat wishing us good luck with the snow. We hope you all have safe travels too in that snow. Hopefully you don't have to travel much in it. But let's get back to that last slide, because I think there's more I wanted to talk about. Yes. The next meeting, a quarterly meeting that we have scheduled, is April 11th, but we may actually do something sooner once we get our construction start dates set. And just again, if you haven't signed up for our e-newsletters, please do that, because that's going to be your best resource for getting that sort of information. If there's no other questions, I think we can call it a night. And I hope that you all stay warm and dry over the next couple of snowy days. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Y'all have a good night.
Thanks all.